Hey, Taco Tuesday fans, this is Christian Brindle.
And I am Glenn Shelton.
We came together and combined our forces to create something special for insurance agents called Taco Tuesday. Let's taco about insurance. My company, Christian Brindle Insurance Services,
and my company, Lead Heroes,
is here to bring you the latest and greatest news happening in the insurance industry today and eat some tacos while we do it.
If you enjoy the content that we put out on this podcast, feel free to leave us a review or subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes.
Without further ado, let's get into this episode of Taco Tuesday.
No, I don't know if the name does sound familiar. We are live, by the way.
Woo! Perfect time, man. I'm getting my tacos out.
Taco Tuesday. And I feel like I've been put here on this earth to trigger the taco enthusiasts out there.
You love triggering. That's like your go-to.
It's like my thing. I don't know what it is. I don't know. But today, my friends, I have something a little controversial. I have breakfast tacos. What are breakfast tacos, you ask? These are crepes from IHOP, the International House of Pancakes. But what it really should be is the International House of Breakfast Tacos.
I like how it's fun. It looks like a breakfast quesadilla, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. So I'm gonna quickly put the cream on the inside and all the other goodies, and then I'm gonna fold it up like a taco, and it's gonna be great.
I think the judges. Can you hear me all right? By the way, is my mic too far from me?
I can hear you perfectly.
Okay, good. Guys, I was having a little trouble hearing Christian, so if myself or Christian, if you have any issues hearing us, please just comment below. We'd love to hear, so we could maybe try to fix things if there is an issue. But yeah, I think the judges say if you fold it like a taco, I don't think it really matters, really beyond that. If it's in taco shape.
Taco shape.
Taco shape.
Okay, so I gotta not let this spill everywhere. This is a messy breakfast taco.
I'm here with our sponsor today, you guys. Taco Bell.
They need to be our sponsor.
It should be our sponsor. Here's the neat part. Here's a little pro tip before we get into things today, you guys. We have some really fun stuff that we're talking about today. But before we get into that, I found out on DoorDash that you can actually customize these tacos from Taco Bell. So this is a taco supreme. I'm not sure if you can see it, but I added onions and I added black beans to a normal hard shell taco. Well, it's not really a normal, it's a Doritos Locos taco. So customized tacos from Taco Bell. What else could you possibly want? Jeez.
So Ricardo said my mic sounded loud also. So I don't know if it's just you.
Oh.
Maybe it's me.
Thank you, Ricardo. Christian, turn the what about the volume or the gain on the dial? Try that. I think I'm looking at it. I think I'm looking at the gain on my side. I think the gain's on the other side. Yeah, I think your gain might be too high, dude. Yes, that knob. Turn it down, Christian.
Okay, how's that? Any better?
No.
Now?
It's getting worse. It's getting worse, Christian.
Okay, how about now?
Actually, that's significantly better, I think.
Okay, that's good. That's good. I don't want to feel like I'm screaming at everybody throughout whole Taco Tuesday.
Yeah. Did you mess with your mic?
I haven't touched it.
It's been
I don't know. So guys, as I devour these breakfast tacos.
How are they, by the way? Are those
actually fantastic? Actually really good.
They look really good.
Someone said just stop the video. Is that because of my sound or the breakfast tacos? Give me some clarity here.
Yeah, it's still a little garbly. I mean, I can communicate with you.
That's good. That's a start.
We can talk.
We can communicate.
We're here. We're
We're
talking.
still speaking the same language.
Tacos, guys.
All right, what if I tried this? What about now?
It's significantly quieter, but it's no longer garbly.
Okay, we're just removing the mic then. Much as I don't want to. Something's wrong with my mic, I think.
My taco
Okay.
just exploded on me.
So guys, today we're talking about stocks and the wonderful world of Wall Street and the stock market. I was not sure if there would be a lot of interest for this topic in a group like this, but it seemed like there was. So we decided, screw it. Let's talk about it. Mr. Shipton, do you stock
about it?
Do you stock or do you stonk, as the kids say?
It's a great question, Christian. It's a great way to start this out. And one thing I was kind of torn at first because like on one, I was like, is this really relevant? I'm like, is this relevant to our audience? But the more I thought about it, the more I felt like it was relevant. And I'm going to tell you why. Because on the life insurance side of the business specifically, it's very, very close to being integrated with the stock market in many different ways. You know, we can sell indexed products, right? We can sell an indexed annuity as a life insurance agent. We can sell an indexed universal life product, right? As a life agent. The other thing I wanted to get to today as well is I was trying to remember what company it was. I believe, don't quote me on this, I believe it was National Life Group, which is a gigantic life insurance company. And I believe I actually at one point got to read through kind of to their investors how they invest the money, because these life insurance companies, you guys, the way this whole system works, you know, they have the underwriters who are like, okay, these people aren't going to die. Those people pay the money. The life insurance company takes the money and invests the money. So not only are they trying to make, you know, money on that premium, hopefully they're getting maybe a little profit on the premium, but then they're really an investment company and they're trying to make money taking those premiums and investing it long term. Most of it's extremely conservative, although I found it interesting because it said about, I think it said 5% goes into option trading, which is something I'm a huge fan of. And at this point in today's episode, I'd like to take a minute and say, this is purely for entertainment purposes.
Thank you.
Christian and I are not licensed investors, licensed to give financial advice. This is purely for entertainment. And hopefully that's enough of a legal disclosure that we can really open the conversation up. So Christian, what do you think?
Yeah. So I have not advanced enough to do call options. I'm not smart enough. And clearly, you know, as Glenn said just so eloquently a second ago, this is just for entertainment purposes only. I mean, for me, I have a fascination with buying individual stocks. I really, really enjoy buying individual stocks and researching companies and going through annual reports. Of course, I don't always have as much time to do that as I would like, but I enjoy just kind of researching and dissecting a company and trying to decide if I feel like it's a good long-term investment for me. And most of the stocks I bought have been. When I've taken that kind of approach, you know, and I'm looking at their balance sheet, I'm looking at their debt to cash ratio, I'm looking at all these different aspects of a company. The only one that I really just got freaking smacked over the head on that I was Carnival Cruise Line.
Uh-oh.
I bought that stock. I started buying into that stock. I started building a position 3 months before the pandemic hit.
Oh, ho, ho.
I bought it.
Okay.
I bought it at an all-time high, like 50s, 60s per share. And then it dropped down to like $10 a share.
Lush.
Like a week.
So I want to stop before we go any further. I want to stop, and I do want to ask you a question. When was the first time you invested in the stock market? And tell me kind of why you did it.
So the first stock I ever bought was Ford Automotive, which I don't own anymore. But I didn't know what I was doing. And I was like, hey, Ford's a company that I recognize. Ford's only $8 a share or something like that. I'm like, let's buy Ford. I'm like, Ford's got a dividend. Cool. And so
what's a dividend for the uninformed? Can you explain what a dividend is?
Yes, I'm a big fan of dividends. I've kind of built my portfolio out to where I get dividends every single month. Some of them are small, some of them are decent size, just depending on the month and what shares are paying out. But what a dividend essentially is it's when a company has profits, it's going to share into that profit with its investors. So it's going to send a small portion, usually per share. Like an example is I one of my favorite dividend stocks is AT&T. I love AT&T, even though they're probably not the cleanest balance sheet out there. But I have like 100 shares of AT&T, and it pays out, I want to say, like a 54-cent dividend every quarter, every 3 months.
So you get 54 cents per quarter per share that
per
you
share.
own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when that one comes around and pays every quarter, I'm right now getting about $54, roughly. And then obviously, the idea when you're investing into dividend stocks is you want to reinvest those dividends back into the stocks, and then essentially starts to snowball. That's kind of the whole philosophy. It's not like bubblegum money or, breakfast taco money. But yeah, I mean, so to answer your question, the first time I ever bought an individual stock, it was about a month before my daughter was born. So probably 2.5 years ago, roughly, maybe 2 or 3 months before she was born, maybe 2.5 years ago, roughly, was the first time I ever bought a stock. And why I did it was because I'm fascinated by it. Like, I was fascinated by it and I wanted to learn more about it. I've taken courses since then, tried to educate myself. I've spent a lot of time studying it. I'm now starting to just invest more and more into like index funds, S&P 500 index funds or something like that, because I feel like those are just super easy and they don't require a whole lot of my time like the individual stocks do. But yeah, I enjoy it. It's a small passion of mine.
Yeah. So my story, you guys, when I first got in, it was I was very, very young. I was like 19.
Ooh, okay.
It was right when, and like, the interesting part about this story is the stock market, in my opinion, it's like all about timing. Arguably, you could say life is all about timing, right? Like, and a side tangent on that, and I think I've even mentioned this on the podcast before. There was this TED Talk where someone went through like 200 different companies, 100 startups, and 100 companies that have been established for like 100 years. And the number one factor that they attributed to these companies' success was just the timing of the market. And they went through a bunch of different specific businesses where, someone had a great idea, but their timing was wrong. Even if their execution was good, the market just wasn't ready for it. So I got lucky when I first got into the market, and it was right at the bottom of the recession. Which, when you mentioned Ford being like sub $5, that was it. I remember Ford being like $1, like all these crazy, like if you could go back, it's February 2009, I think. February 2009, the stock market was just at a bottom. And I had never bought shares. I had never done anything at this point. I decided to jump into some stock options, even though I don't understand fully how it works. And I decided to buy Citigroup because Citigroup, again, major financial player. If the market swings, most likely Citigroup's going to swing with it, if the economy starts to improve. And at the time, it was almost $1,000, which, was like literally like every penny I had at the time. And what I did is I put some money in, it went down. I was like, damn it, I put more money in because I'm trying to average it down, you guys. I'm trying to take my cost, even though the stock goes down. I buy more. So now I'm at a lower entry point. Then it goes down again and I buy more. And I did that like 3 or 4 times till I got to $1,000. And the thing with stock options is they expire. You can't just hold on to stock options forever. Stock options have a limited time window when they can be used. And if you get to 0 and you haven't sold them, or they're not in the money and you execute them, they're worthless. And it's like a week from these stocks, from the options I bought expiring. They're expiring in a week. So I'm about to go to 0 in a week and have nothing. And then all of a sudden the market turned and I did like 600% on what I had put in. Woo! And I've more or less been chasing that high, I'd say, ever since that happened. And the reality is that's not a normal situation at all. To get a 600% return in, like a 60-day window, like that's just not the normal, normal type of return that you're going to see in the market.
Right.
Even if you know what you're doing, even if you're an expert,
It's interesting because that time period, like Warren Buffett always says, be greedy when everyone else is fearful and fearful when everyone else is greedy, right? So like that time period in 2008, 2009, and then even what we saw last year during the pandemic was some of the best times ever to buy stocks. Like you couldn't miss. And like I was buying a bunch of Disney last year, like in March, and maybe it was like, and I was buying Disney shares in the low 90s or, high 80s. The stock's almost 200 a share today.
Yeah, I was like, you doubled if you still held it. If you didn't paper hand it, you got double your money, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't sold one share of Disney. And like my story about Carnival, it kind of goes hand in hand with what you were just saying about buying shares when they dip to lower your cost per acquisition, right? So what I did when Carnival went down to like $8 a share, I bought like a ton of more shares.
There you go.
And my cost per acquisition was like at 60 almost. And by the time I sold it, it was down to like 23. And I sold it at 22 and I barely lost anything.
Probably should have held longer, but okay.
Probably so. But I was done with this stock. Exit. But one stock that I had a question for you. Is there a stock that you bought early and sold that you regret selling? I have one in mind, but I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Yeah. And it actually correlates with John's question. John just said, let's cut to the chase. Who's still diamond handing AMC and GME? So I have, in the last 60 days, I have traded both of these stocks. And I've made money on both of these stocks. I bought GME, and GME is GameStop for those, again, who don't know, which has had just this crazy start of the year with, all of these retail investors, the small guys, just like Christian and I, who have looked at buying shares and have, caused the price to increase. So much has happened. We're not going to take the time to kind of recap all of that, but
yeah.
GameStop spiked. I buy not at the top, but I bought on the way up. And then after they like halted trading on the stock and the stock went way down. And then I kind of did the same thing. Like I averaged it down and I really believed it would go back up. I didn't know how high it would go back up. And it cost me thousands and thousands of dollars that I unloaded it. If I had waited like 3 days, I had waited, I made money. I profited on the trade. So I really shouldn't be upset because I'm still, profit is profit. Who cares? But
right.
I had waited 3 days. It would have been multiple thousands of dollars different in my profit. So that's just a recent example of selling too soon.
So I did not get involved with the GME AMC stocks. And I kind of wish I did because it was so exciting to watch from afar. But one stock that comes to mind for me is it was
November or so of 2019, and I started getting super interested in electric car stocks. And this was before Tesla started to spike up. I didn't ever buy any Tesla stock. What I did buy was NEO stock, and it was about $1 a share back then, $1.50 a share maybe. And for those of you who aren't familiar with NEO, NEO is an electric car company that's basically, they call themselves the Tesla of China.
Yeah, I'm familiar.
And I bought, I think 100 to 200 shares, somewhere in there, and just spend a couple $100. And I decided that was going through their balance sheets one night, and they didn't have any revenue. Like it was something that it just spooked me, like it looked like they might go bankrupt or something. Like Tesla was moving a factory into China. And I thought, I was like, oh, I'm like, they're done. I'm like, they're going to get crushed. And since then, the stock price has gone like up to $50 plus a share. And that's one that I lose sleep at night about, because that would have been a huge profit.
Those technology companies are tough.
Yeah.
Really tough, because the evaluations are made up.
Yeah. They're just pie in the sky.
Yeah. They're like, hey, we're worth 10 billion because we think 5 years from now we're going to have 80% of the market. Like, it's just like pure speculation. You have no idea what's going to happen.
I want to live in that world. 5 years from now, Christian Brindle Insurance Services is going to be bigger than Integrity. Now, give me
Right.
$100 million in.
We're doing a Series A round. We're doing a Series A with a value of 2 billion. Who would like to invest? Yeah.
What is your profits? We won't have profits until 5 years from now.
Yeah. I'm personally taking all the profits for the next 5 years.
All the profits go to me.
We're basically a non-profit in many ways. Tracy, shout out. What's going on, man? He wants to talk crypto, which is a great segue potentially here. This is where all my liquid cash goes. All alternative coins. Crypto's a tough one for me. Again, flashback to about a decade ago, or even long. It was probably like 12 years. There's been so many times where I could have entered the crypto market in a big way, and it was like just a touch over my head. Like, I understood how it worked. I understood the value. I'd even used it, like done some small transactions kind of for fun, just to see how it worked. But I never really understood what the long-term potential could be. And so that one stings, because if I had earlier, obviously fishes were wishes, but if I had gotten in earlier and just hell, I mean, I could have made some real cash there. Are you in crypto right now, Christian?
Not at all. And I don't know. I feel like I'm afraid.
You're embarrassed to say that, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, so I was heavily looking at buying a couple of Bitcoins about at the same time I got into stocks 2.5 years ago. It had dropped down to about $4 or $5 grand a coin. Bitcoin did. And I was like, okay, I'm like, I think it was 2 years before that, it was up to 20, or 3 years before that, something like that. I mean, it had kind of, everyone had looked like at that time, people had thought that it had peaked. A lot of people did. And it was starting to go back down. I was like, okay, I might buy a couple, and kind of see where this takes me. But I decided not to do it. I don't know what it was. I just got spooked, and I mean, and I'm the same way. There's been several times that I've looked at buying some crypto or a Bitcoin here, a Bitcoin there. And to see where it's at today, I mean, I'm upset at myself, to put it lightly.
So I know this is kind of, we just started talking about crypto. I'm kind of in the same, but like I'm still on the sideline. The closest recently I've come was Elon Musk talking about Doge. Is it Doge or
Dogecoin? Dogecoin, whatever.
Doge.
Yeah.
When he started pumping it, and everyone was like, they're gonna talk about it in a Super Bowl ad, like, and everyone's like, it's gonna go up to $10 a coin. That's the closest I've been to actually getting into the crypto scene recently, and especially like an investment sense. I think I have a very small account somewhere with a small number of coins, but to flip back to some of the more conservative, like you mentioned, doing more index investing. Again, that's kind of a more conservative strategy. You don't have to think about it as much. If the market moves, your money moves, and it's kind of a safer bet. What is, and this is a question for everybody, not just Christian. If anybody has the answer, I'd love to hear you in the comments below. But what is the highest annuity return percentage that you have ever heard of? Because someone just told me a number a few weeks ago, and I was like, what? I was like, what? I was like, there's annuities that give you that. I'm like, why am I throwing? I'm like, I should just get an annuity right now. If that's the case, like, I'll just start chunking cash in there.
Yeah, for sure. Like for me, now granted, it's not my wheelhouse at all. So don't crucify me, people, if I'm completely way off. Like
pitchforks.
You're gonna come after me for breakfast tacos first, and then but like I've always heard that a good return for an annuity was like 7, 8, 9%, something like that, you know. And then I know like some of the fixed ones are, 2%, right? Things like that. And that's what I've always heard about annuities.
So you're talking about a variable annuity, or are you talking about an index? What, when you say 7, 8, 9%, what type of annuity is that?
I have no idea. I don't know. I don't know.
We got him.
Heard that from people.
We got him, guys. People. Wrap it up. So the number that was quoted to me recently was 7. And this person acted like it was like a guaranteed 7%. They didn't go into details about whether it was variable or indexed or fixed, but they acted like 7% is a very conservative number for an annuity. And I was like, wow, that's really high. Like in my head, I thought an annuity was like maybe, 4, 5, 6%. I am so far removed from annuities at this point. It's been a long time since I've looked at them, so I really can't speak to them.
You read that comment from Tracy?
Yes.
Put in the.
Wow.
Tracy said, read it. Tracy said, I saw a deferred index, fixed indexed in an annuity do 33% a few years ago. That's ridiculous.
That's insane.
That's crazy.
Well, and the beautiful part about a lot of those, I sold more IULs as an agent than I ever sold annuities. But with those IULs, the beautiful part is there was usually a fixed floor. So you had all that upside potential of the market taking off. They kind of capped you at both ends. So if the market really exploded, you would lose out, because I think there was a cap at like 12%, or I don't know. There was some sort of cap on it, if I remember correctly. And then you have a floor where you're guaranteed 2 or 4%. In the products, you guys, they vary considerably between carriers and companies. So, one carrier might have a certain product that another carrier does not. And they also like to kind of change things around. But, if you're, we're in 6-figure Medicare agent, right? So, if the goal is to earn an income of 6 figures, $100,000, if you took $2 million and you put it into an annuity that's returning 7%, and you're taking that out monthly, I mean, that's $140,000 a year, you guys. You're well past 6 figures, and it's only 2 million. And some people might be listening to this and they're like, Glenn, I don't have 2 million. I don't have 2 million liquid sitting around either. I get that. But the idea is that if you get to the point where you are liquid 2 mil, or you're looking at trying to put 2 million somewhere, you could put it in an annuity and do very, very well.
SILAC, the new equitable life and casualty. Interesting. I'm just reading the comment there from Tracy.
We need to have Tracy on here, by the way, Tracy. We need to get you on a Taco Tuesday here soon, brother.
Tracy's done 2, not 1, but 2 Everything Medicare podcast episodes with me about this stuff. And It's always a good time, to talk to Tracy. Tracy's the man.
The main.
And if we're lucky, like on the first cocktail party, Tracy will have a board behind him with his goals on it, and we'll be able to try to decipher.
I remember that. I remember the whiteboard. Yes.
Glenn,
Yes.
are you buying individual stocks right now?
I am.
What are some that you're liking?
So a stock that I like that's kind of been all over the place. So I think the cannabis market, you guys, has a huge growth trajectory. 10 years ago, I told I'm like, guys, when I watch these states slowly start legalizing cannabis, there's going to be this break point where not necessarily every state will legalize it, but we're almost already at, there's legal marijuana in the majority of states, whether that's medical legal cannabis or we're talking about, recreational legal cannabis. So I'm a huge believer, and we also have a more liberal government right now. Again, for better or for worse, regardless of what your political beliefs are, when we're just talking about dollars and cents here, we have a more liberal government. We have marijuana reform at an all-time high where whenever I see anything talked about, it's like 60 or 70% of individuals are for some type of legal form of cannabis, medical and or recreational. There's already been senators that have come out and talked about it. There's a spike in January. And if you look at, so the stock that I'm actually in right now, it's SNDL, which I'm blanking on the actual name of the company right now. I can tell you the ticker.
Sentinel?
Yeah, SNDL. I'm blanking on the name.
Growers?
Yes.
Sentinel Growers?
They already have a footprint. And I think they do a lot. And the stock's crazy cheap, you guys. It's like $1 a share. So, for me, it's one of those things where I can buy a fair amount of shares and the risk is relatively low. I can have 1,000 shares for $1,000, and if it takes off, awesome. If we get, imagine if Democrats pass a national cannabis reformation during this term with a majority Democratic government, a stock like that could go 10x in value. They've already got a footprint. They already have distribution. And now they get to just, basically pour gas on it and they could take off. So that's one example of a stock I've traded recently. I'd love to hear from you, Christian. What's a stock that you've gotten into recently?
So, I was in another stock called Apple Hospitality, not Apple, but Apple Hospitality. It was a REIT stock, and it was big in the hotel scene for like travel and things like that. I started getting into that maybe about, 8 months before COVID happened, and then COVID happened and it got decimated. And they stopped. And what I liked about those REIT stocks is they paid out a monthly dividend. A lot of them, like not a quarterly dividend, but a monthly dividend. So I kind of like that. This one was paying like a 7-8% dividend or something like that at the time. And it did really well for ever since I got into it. And then it got up to the point where, I was breaking even on it. I dumped it. And then I rolled the shares into another one called Realty Income that does a little bit more diversified real estate. Like they rent to a lot of Walgreens stores, retailers, and things like that. And they do a lot of different things. And that's what I'm into right now. They're paying a 4.54% dividend on a monthly basis. And so I like that stock. Because I feel like real estate stocks are very safe, right? Like what's going to happen to real estate? We all need a place to live. We all need a place to, businesses need a place to do business. I feel like real estate stocks are a very safe investment long term, and there's only going to be more of a demand for it as the population grows. So I'm a big believer in that. I bought CVS stock actually.
That's a good
recently. And it's because I'm just a big fan of what they do as a company. I like how they're very diversified in the health industry. Like, and what I mean by that is like in so many places, they're now having clinics within their pharmacies, in their stores. Like they want to own the medical market, they want to own the pharmacy market. They now own Aetna, so they're instantly in the top 5 health insurance space. In the Medicare side, group health insurance, and they already had SilverScript before that in the Part D side. So they got their hands in so many things, but they all tie back together in the health insurance space. So I don't know. I'm a fan of the company.
I like CVS. I think that's a great one. One that I'm really heavy on right now that I got into before their earnings last week is actually FedEx.
Ooh.
With everything that's kind of transitioned to this e-commerce model with COVID, the tough part with this stock, which the ticker is FDX, you guys, if you're wanting to look at it, there's a lot of speculation that they're going to lose revenue if the economy does go to a full recovery. I don't buy into that. I love FedEx. And the funny part is I just had to ship something the other day and I used FedEx and they picked it up right from my house. I literally set it on my porch with the label on it. They picked it up, they took it. When you're talking about like balance sheets, I went pretty deep into FedEx's financial history, especially after that earnings report. I really dug into it. The books are clean, you guys, from what I saw. I mean, you've got the debt ratio is very low. The number of it's like 100 billion in assets, less than 20 billion in debt. They had their biggest quarter in history last quarter. It was like, this is despite a huge issue with the winter storm that happened. So headquarters for FedEx is in Tennessee. The winter storm hits and they get just nuked for a couple of weeks where, a lot of business, just packages aren't moving. And so despite that, they still did over 21, almost 22 billion in a quarter. So I'm just super bullish. And then you have the post office, which has become this like political nightmare where, people want to dismantle it. They want to charge more for it. They want to privatize it. I don't care, but I look at FedEx and I feel like, again, this is a great bet for the future. And even if COVID goes away magically tomorrow, we're habitual people. We're humans. We're going to probably, e-commerce, it was always on this trajectory anyways. COVID just like hockey sticked it where people were forced to use it, right? But it's not going to go away. We're not going to not everyone tomorrow is going to roll back to Walmart. Like this is the new future for sure, is e-commerce, shipping to and from your house. People don't want to go to the store.
When do you feel like a blue chip stock is at its peak and it's not a good value anymore?
That's a good question. And it's funny you mentioned that because I got into Disney recently.
Oh, wow.
And I'm jealous because you got into Disney at the right time.
Yeah.
I got into Disney a little bit later, but I'm super bullish on Disney. When you look at the value of content and you look at the sort of content that Disney owns, Star Wars, Marvel, I mean, Disney Plus was a smashing success.
What is that one called? National Geographic.
I think ESPN. Don't they
Yeah,
own?
yeah.
Dude, they own everything. They own everything. You
They
guys
have the controlling interest in Hulu now.
I know, dude. Disney owns So I actually lost money on my Disney trade just because the timing was bad recently, but I could care less. I think the value's there, the long-term value. And I think that's part of it too, is like, you have to know, like when you get into a stock, are you trying to trade this in a week, in a month? Are you like, I'm just going to sit on this for 5 years and see what happens? So with a blue chip stock like that, it's hard to lose, and I'm the same way I looked at FedEx. I'm like, I could hold on to this for 5 years and I would be shocked if this goes down, despite a global catastrophe, knock on wood, overvaluation. I feel like those blue chips, like you mentioned AT&T earlier. I mean, I'm sure you can tear into the financials and you could say, oh, this valuation is
they're trading 20x on their profit. This isn't realistic. Like, you could really tear into it, but it's tough because there's so much speculation. It's almost, people are almost more guessing where it's going, and they care less about where it's at today. That's what I feel like.
Yeah, 100%. Like another one. So like when I first started buying Disney was before the pandemic. When I actually first started buying, I was just buying a few shares, and it was like 3 months before they were going to release Disney Plus. But I was listening to the earnings calls and stuff, and they were talking about it coming and their expectations for it. And I was like, and just like you very accurately said, I was looking at everything they own. Like, they own media. They own Fox. They own like,
Fox.
I don't know if it's like Fox News Fox, but they own Fox, like the channel Fox.
Right.
Like,
I didn't know that one.
They own ESPN. They own, like you said, Marvel, Star Wars. I mean, it goes on and on and on. There's a crazy YouTube video about everything that Disney owns. It's like a 25-minute video. It just goes and goes and goes. And so I felt like that was just a no-brainer. But like, we
didn't even mention the theme parks.
Yeah,
we didn't even mention the theme park. We were just talking content right there. I mean, all the Disney classics, dude, I just watched with my kids the newest Disney movie, Raya and the Last Dragon.
Oh, I need to see that.
It was fantastic, dude. It's a completely original content. This was not from anywhere but Disney. They created this content, and I thought it was awesome. So you have this company, not only do they own all of this proven content that they can continue to evergreen, which they are crushing with Star Wars and Marvel right now. They've totally evergreen both of these huge content providers. But then they're still pumping out original content that they're just making up. I mean, it's insane.
It's crazy. Like, they have done such a good job with Star Wars and Marvel. It's unbelievable. And the amount of money they've been able to make off of those two brands alone. Like, they have Disney Cruises. They have, there's one that was on the top of my head that I was thinking about too, that we forgot to mention. They have, they have a lot, point blank. But the reason why I ask is not because so much of Disney for me, because I got in a good place. Like, my average cost per share is $110 for Disney right now, because I was buying before that. And then my really cheap shares brought down my average cost. But I recently bought into Apple, like the Apple. I put like $1,000 into it. I don't know. I'm like, reading up about it. A lot of experts were saying that it's too late to really make any gains with Apple. But I was looking at it like, this is the safest investment I think I can make right now, or one of them.
I think I look at Apple a lot the same way I look at Disney. They have such a big ecosystem at this point. I'm looking at my freaking statements every month, and I've got like more than $100, it seems like, going out every single month to Apple, and so I think about that, and I'm like, okay, I'm probably not alone. There's probably a lot of people who are just chunking out money every single month. When they switched iPhones to payment plans, they essentially jacked the price of the iPhone up, and they're like, listen, we understand you can't pay $2,000 for a phone. We're just going to give it to you, and you're going to pay us $200 a month. Yeah. I'm like, dude, I think they're genius. I really do. I love Tim Cook.
Me too.
I've read a ton about Tim Cook. I think Steve couldn't have left the company in better hands with Tim Cook. He took their supply chain from 2 to 3 weeks. So before Tim Cook got in at Apple, and if you don't know, I'm a huge Apple fanboy, so I'm going to apologize for the tangent here. But before Tim Cook came in as COO, the supply chain, when you bought an iPhone at an Apple store, it took almost 2.5 to 3 weeks. I think sometimes even a month to get the phone from the factory in China all the way to the store. Somehow Tim Cook comes in with supply chain management strategies, and he takes that time down to 2 or 3 days. 2 or 3 days. which is insane. And it saves you so much money when you can do that, because you're never going to be caught holding the bag. If you know that when a phone gets bought in 2 to 3 days, a new phone's coming to replace it, you're never going to have a glut of inventory. So I love Apple. I love Tim Cook. I think Apple, again, one of those companies, next 100 years, not going anywhere.
I agree, and I am also a big Apple fanboy. I'm a big Steve Jobs fan. I love Tim Cook. I have a picture of Steve Jobs in my office, and it's a very nice picture. It's like, there's a picture of him when he was first creating Apple. When he had the shag and everything, and he's holding up an apple, and it's a painting. It's not a photograph. It's like a painting. And then there's a picture behind him as his older self. It's all, it stares me everywhere I go in my office. The eyes follow. It's one of those pictures. And, but that's how I wanted it. It makes me feel like he's judging me if I don't do what I need to do, but no, just kidding. But I'm a big Apple fan, big Steve Jobs fan. I've read tons of books about Steve Jobs. I've watched tons of documentaries. I'm just, I think he's one of the goats of entrepreneurship.
Oh man, his story is just a classic. I've read. Did you ever read the Walter Isaacson, his biography?
A huge white book, right?
Yeah.
I have it in my office. I've read the whole thing.
Yeah, I couldn't put that book down when I got it. Just an absolute insane story. When you watch him go from creating Apple to getting ousted from Apple, to creating a new company, to selling the new company back to Apple, to coming in and taking Apple back over when it was at this moment of peril, and just taking it to the next level. I mean, highly recommend it, you guys. Even if you're not into investing or into Apple, it's a great, incredible story. It just doesn't, it seems like fiction. It really does. It seems like a made up story. You would never think it's real.
And like, they kick him out of Apple because they feel like he's spending too much money. The board doesn't like all his decision making. They bring in what's the other guy's name? The guy that took over for him, the Pepsi guy. I can't remember his name.
I can't remember the name right now either. But
anyway, he comes in, and John Scali, that's his name. He comes in and they oust him, put him in charge. He only lasts a couple of years. He's gone. They go through like 3 or 4 CEOs.
Yep.
They're months away from bankruptcy.
Yep.
And he sells Next, his new company, to Apple. They absorb the company. He becomes like the interim CEO, turns it around, and then he's permanent CEO. Ridiculous story. And I'm just a huge fan as well, along with you there. Another stock that I am pretty deep in is Facebook. Controversial one, right? But I haven't bought it recently. I bought it at, my average cost right now is $201 a share.
It was funny you mentioned Facebook, because when I was at the doctor the other day and I mentioned stocks to my doctor, he said that he's like, it's a casino. That was what he said, which I thought was hilarious. And I love telling people, sir, this is a casino. And so when he said that, I was dying laughing. But he said the one stock that he owns a ton of is Facebook. And he said when it IPO'd pretty early on, he dumped a ton of money into Facebook stock. So I don't own Facebook stock. I kind of don't know what I think about the future of Facebook, but I mean, I don't see it going away either. I mean, it's kind of like Disney. Disney buys up all of these competitors and like-minded businesses. I don't see Zuckerberg, if Clubhouse becomes the powerhouse it is, I could see Zuckerberg saying, here's 10 billion. And they're like, no, we don't want your money. Here's 100 billion. Okay. Okay. Here's Clubhouse. Take our Clubhouse. Like Zuckerberg has more money than God. Like, he has access to, who wouldn't finance that acquisition? Even if the numbers didn't make sense at all, they would still finance, that type of acquisition. I mean, Instagram was what, $1 billion at the time, and they're saying that it was just an absolute steal. They paid.
I remember when Facebook bought WhatsApp,
like 2016, I think.
19 billion, I think.
Yeah. And Mark Zuckerberg came out the next day and said, I stole the company. I stole the company.
Baby!
Yeah, like 19 billion, whatever it was, like, and I mean, in my opinion, I feel like Instagram's far more valuable than WhatsApp.
Well, the idea is that messenger apps are really the future. So I see the value in both. Also, I think WhatsApp is more of like a global play. There's a lot of third world countries and just different places around the world that use WhatsApp. Here in the States, I just don't see it's not being used like it is elsewhere.
Yeah.
So, but that's hilarious. I didn't know he said that. I stole the company.
It was something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing, but that was basically what he said. He's like, we got such a good deal. I felt like we stole it, like, and everyone was like, what are you talking about? You paid $19 billion for this company. And
maybe he was just trying to make his investors feel good about the amount of money he just spent, because it was such a freaking ridiculous amount of money.
Yeah. Like I look at them as a company that, like, I look at a couple of companies and I try to decide if I want to put them in the too big to fail camp. I'd put Apple in there. I'd put Disney in there. Too big to fail.
Costco's
yeah.
in there for me. I'm in Costco.
Amazon's there at this point, I'm sure. Google.
I don't know who can afford Amazon stock. If you can,
yeah. I don't have any Amazon stock. I've looked at it before, but I'm like, do I really want to pay that much per share? Not so sure. Alibaba, probably too big to fail.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like there's just a couple of these companies that, like, unless they royally screw up something, like royally, they're probably going to be powerhouses for the next, at least couple of decades, and if not way longer than that, maybe longer than all of us are even here. I mean, so that I've invested into companies like that, but I'm trying to get better at spotting companies on the up and coming, because that's not what that's something I'm not very as good at. And trying to like see where they're going to be. Like with Neo, I got it right with Neo, and then I analysis paralysis Neo, and then I got screwed by selling Neo. So like I need to get better at those up and coming ones.
So one that's up and coming that I've traded recently is called Microvision, and they specialize in LiDAR. And while LiDAR traditionally sounds like something that's on a plane or a satellite, like, and it's not, or even potentially on a vehicle, the way technology is evolving is these newest devices, the newest smartphones will have LiDAR technology built in. And I have the newest iPhone, and there's some sort of LiDAR technology in it. I think it's kind of rudimentary. I don't think it's very evolved or advanced quite yet. Right. But the idea of how something like this could benefit, someone like me or an average Joe, you could take your phone and just kind of flip it around the room, and using LiDAR, it can essentially map the entire space. It can tell you where the ceiling's at, where the floor is. Like, you think about that type of technology for someone like a builder, like a home builder, or, a contractor, you're able to just go in and just flip your phone around, and you've got the whole room in your phone now mapped out. Like, I think there's a lot that could happen there. And with Microvision specifically, there's been chatter about potential acquisition by Microsoft. So that's one that's a little less known that I'm bullish on. What I'd like to do, though, it's kind of transition from individual stocks. Yeah. I have a question for you. So something I don't understand entirely. We just pumped 2 trillion essentially into the economy, right?
Right.
Yeah, buckle. I know you're like, uh-oh, where's my seatbelt? Oof, click. Like, how does it not create an environment where the stocks are going to go up? If we are juicing the economy with that much cash, now again, I understand inflation.
I understand being scared about the dollar losing value. But overall, again, like I was saying, I'm very bullish.
So the short answer, in my opinion, is it's impossible for it not to. And if you mentioned inflation a second ago, all that it does is it essentially moves our inflation forward 5 to 10 years early on schedule. To me, and so it's not just stocks we'll see go up, everything, bread, eggs, milk, gas, it'll all see an uptick. And that's why, a lot of people don't like Grant Cardone. I'm a huge Grant Cardone fanboy. Everybody knows this, but I think there's a lot of wisdom in what he says when he talks about investing. He says cash is trash because it's, especially now with all this, trillions of dollars being thrust into the economy, and they're printing money like they are, our inflation is sped up. The value keeps going down faster and faster and faster. And it's better, instead of having your money in the bank where it's just getting essentially like you're losing money because it's becoming less valuable, have it in assets, spend it on investments and put it somewhere where it can continue to grow. And I feel like stocks is a vehicle for that, because like you said, it's going to cause the stocks to inflate in costs. And just like everything else will, I just don't see any way around it. It might not happen tomorrow, but it's around the corner.
Yeah, I've dug really deep into this because it's something that I'm not an economist. I don't have, some sort of big financial degree. And I think the reality is that even some of the most qualified people, we're doing stuff that's never happened before. So how can you really tell, how can you predict what's going to happen if an event happens that's never happened? I mean, we've printed I don't know what the number is now. Last year, it was 37% of all the cash we've ever printed was printed in 2020.
That's terrifying.
It's insanity. It's pure insanity. And to take that number, and now here we are, we're dumping another 2 trillion in. And then I'm hearing talks about even more money getting dumped in around the corner. I don't understand how it can't cause inflation. Now, devil's advocate, the people who say that we're going to avoid inflation, the argument that I've heard is as long as the dollar has somewhere to go, we don't have to be concerned. That it will be volatile, it'll move, we might lose, some value, but if the money goes to a company, for example, like the PPP loans, and it's able to, get paid back, or it benefits the economy because the company's able to keep going, whatever. That's an example where the money has a positive traction in the economy, and basically saying that if the dollar has nowhere to go and everyone's just sitting on oodles of cash, that's when you get that flash inflation like we've seen in South America, where you're paying $1 million for a loaf of bread because that money has no value. The scary part is a lot of these countries use the American dollar to back their economies. So I think if it happens, it'll probably be a domino effect. You'll see a major economy overseas change. Maybe they're backing their dollar with Bitcoin. They're not backing their dollar with the US dollar anymore. Tesla just took on 2 billion in Bitcoin to put on their ledger. I mean, who knows what could happen. So I see both sides of it. On one hand, we might be printing our way to our destruction. On the other hand, this cash infusion might cause the market to literally, especially if COVID recovers in a significant way, which I believe it will, we might see just a rocket take off.
Yeah.
I'm more bullish than I am bearish on where the economy's at right now. If you gave me a picture of what the market looks like in September, October 2021, I would like to think we're doing well. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't see a correction that's happening that quickly. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you make a lot of good points, and I think it's true. I mean, I feel like in the next 30 to 60 days or so, I think we're going to see a significant pullback of COVID restrictions in a lot of places. I think that will cause a spike in terms of not spike in cases, but spike in the S&P 500 shooting up, and and the Dow, and we'll see the stock market really start to thrive. I think at that point, I think it's recovered nicely. Already compared to where it was a year ago. I mean, a year ago today, it was like as low as it's been since 2008. And I think it's already recovered fairly nicely. So I don't disagree with you. I think I'll be interested to see how it goes. But I think there's a strong possibility that you're right about that.
The other big question mark for me too is the real estate market. And as we saw in 2008, the real estate market is so closely tied to the economy. If the real estate market explodes, even if everything else is going well, we know what that ripple effect can look like, right? So
right.
With these moratoriums that are still in place in many states, where people can literally be squatting in their homes, not paying, and governors have come out, again, for better or for worse, we're already here, it's already happened. There is a certain number of people that have been just sitting in their home for 14 months, 13 months, and they might have lost their income and they haven't made a single house payment. What happens? What happens when the moratorium gets lifted and are they going to evict all these people? Are they going to forgive all this money? What happens if, I don't know. That's what I'm like. There's so many there's so many ways that it could go either way. What do you think? Yeah. What do you think about the real estate market though?
I think the real estate market's crazy right now. I just refinanced my house, for example.
Yeah.
And they waived my appraisal, which I was like, okay. And
That's
then
crazy.
And then
crazy.
I'm like, okay, and it cut off like $460 a month on my mortgage payment. I had to put nothing down. Nothing. I'm closing on Thursday. Like I'm signing the papers on Thursday. Like I have not paid anything, and I don't know, I don't know if that would have happened a year ago or 2 years ago.
No.
No
way.
And so I feel like there's a lot of that going on. Like, how do they know my house isn't beat to shit? They don't, No, my house is not beat to shit, by the way.
Violet has shit all over your house. It's worth nothing.
It's everywhere. It's on the walls. But like the market is just so insane to where like they're granting things and making promises that have not been made in a long time, or at least ever in some situations. And so like it's crazy. I think that is an incredibly relevant domino that we're going to have to keep an eye on, because that domino could fall and it could kind of, we've, like you said, we've seen how that can impact other things. And these breakfast tacos, I don't know about them.
What do you mean you don't know? You know all about them.
I ate one and it was delicious, and now it's upsetting my stomach. So moral of the story, don't eat breakfast tacos. This is going to be the thumbnail right here.
Yeah, there was this book I was reading. I'm going to check my phone because it was a audiobook. It was specifically recently published talking about inflation versus deflation, again, on this topic of the economy and how it all works. And I'm not quite done with it, but from what I have heard, I thought it was excellent. Because basically to give you like the too long you didn't read it, inflation works when it's strategically done. When you're inflating the economy by 2 or 3%, and you have those people who own assets like a house, and your assets are able to increase by 2 or 3%, and especially if your income can keep up with inflation or beat inflation, it can actually work for everybody. But the problem is it doesn't always work for everybody. And there's a lot of people, especially in today's society, who don't own assets. And so that's where a lot of this wealth gap comes from. You have the people who own assets who are happy about a certain amount of inflation. And then you have the other class where income has been stagnant and they don't own assets, and the inflation is causing their income. Not only have they not grown their income line, but now their dollars buying less. And so the argument that the book was making is that we need deflation. We need people who, make an average wage here in the US, they need to be able to take their dollar and buy more. It's almost like giving them a raise if there's a kind of a deflationary effect. But I don't know. Again, this is all entertainment, you guys.
That's right. We are not certified, licensed stock experts, whatever you would want to call it, financial planners, security
advisors. Yeah.
No securities licenses here. Just entertainment purposes only, you guys. So we're getting to about a little bit over an hour here. And I wanted to essentially kind of close this episode out because I felt like it was incredibly interesting, and time kind of flew by because it was a great conversation. Any final thoughts on this topic, on investing in the stock market in our crazy country we live in? And
man, there's a lot. I mean, we talked about so much.
Yeah.
We really did. Yeah. I think even if you think it's not relevant to you, I think there's so much relevancy to the topic. Like I mentioned, your clients, and I was going to talk about this. We've already kind of covered it, but I wanted to talk a little bit more about, again, the direct application of what you do as a Medicare agent to the stock market, because there's a ton of agents out there, whether they have a variable license or they don't have a variable license, whether they have their Series 6 and 63 or they don't. There's a ton of agents that I know and that we work with where they are cross-selling these financial products to their Medicare clients. So even if you're, if you listen to this whole episode and you get to the end and you're like, that was fun, but not applicable to me, I would say you're completely wrong. You should be watching this, even if you're not investing, because it is important to you and it is important to your insurance clients. And dip your toe in the water, try it out, throw some money in the market, see what happens. Yeah. That's my final thoughts.
So my final thoughts, guys, is I think there's two types of investors. I think, and to me, especially in the stock market, I feel like there's investors that just want to, put their money somewhere and see how it does and not do a lot of work, and they don't really want to understand it much. An index fund is for you, or something along those lines. Something that, does not really have a lot of research behind it in terms of understanding it. You don't have to keep up with it. Or maybe a mutual fund or something like that, where you don't do much with it. But if you want to buy individual stocks, like I have begun to do the last couple of years, like Glenn does, you got to spend some time and research those companies. Otherwise, it's like you're gambling. Otherwise, it's like you're at the casino. You're just being like, I like their ticker symbol. We're going to buy,
They have a cool logo.
Wow. Yeah.
That's a cool logo.
If the logo spoke to me that way, it probably spoke to 10 million others exactly the same. Like, do your research, understand what a PE ratio is, right? Like, make sure that you know what you're looking at, right? You want to know exactly what you're buying. You don't want to just randomly buy stuff
So that would be my closing thoughts there. I would just say, learn the game a little bit. Like there's a YouTube channel I follow that I really like. I've kind of watched it on and off, but there's been moments like in the last couple of years where I'd watch like every video he puts out. It's a guy called it runs a YouTube channel called Financial Education. The guy's name is Jeremy. He's got like 600,000 subs, and he routinely demolishes the stock market's average return. Like, he is a very, very smart guy. Like, when I first started to get into it, I actually bought his Teachable course, and it was like $300 or something like that. And it's definitely made me more than $300 in what I've learned. So yeah, I mean, if you're going to get into it and you're going to play in that market for individual stocks anyway, study up, do some research. Otherwise, it's like you're kind of just throwing stuff at the wall, see what sticks.
I love it.
All right, guys. Well, this was a fun one. This was a different one, something different. And we appreciate all of you watching. If you watch the replay, make sure to like, subscribe, comment your thoughts. Are we a bunch of dummies? Did we not know something about stocks? Like, we want to hear about that in the comments. And we'll be back next week with another Taco Tuesday. Adios.